All right, we are live in chapter 2 of the Road Goes Ever On. It's a Adventures in Middle Earth role-playing game. And this is, as I said, chapter 2. This chapter is going to pick up the exploits of two of the adventurers, Warry, the dwarf from the Lonely Mountain, and Badu, the Bloodied, who has suffered from amnesia because of an accident while crossing the high pass with his group. So beyond his name, he does not remember much, if anything, about his past. In the last session, Warry was traveling with two of his companions, Krim and, who's the other guy? Duan?
Yep, Duan.
Two dwarven companions. And they came across Badu, who was caught in a landslide, the only survivor of his group. Traveling together out of the high pass in the Misty Mountains, they made it into the forest that surround Rivendell and proceeded to get lost. And in so doing lost several days of travel. One of the evenings as they camped, a hungry troll had happened upon their campsite and helped itself to several of their horses or their ponies, to which they promptly went over, tracked the troll to its lair, and in the process, Krim and Duan were mortally wounded and killed by the troll before the troll itself was slain by the two other heroes. After burying the dead, they returned to their campsite to find an elf who identified himself as Padrion. Seeing their plight, he offered to guide them through the forest, which is where we left off. So, picking up. So the title of this chapter is Bravely into the West. So you travel several days with this elf, Padrion. He's very approachable and answers any questions you guys have. The journey is quick, rather uneventful and restful. Sorry, I was distracted by your chat, guys. It's on the third day. You guys are winding your way down a forested path. It's kind of pebbly, rocky. Ahead of you, you can hear the sounds of rushing water and feel a cool air on your faces. Padrion just is almost effortlessly leading you to. And the path opens up to a sandy embankment of a river. You see the water kind of rushing by. Further up the river, you can hear the sounds of what must be some sort of waterfalls, kind of this rumbling. You see a mist rising up. You see birds flitting across the air and through the distant trees. Padrion turns to you both and says, "Here is the loud water, called the Ford of Bruin." And he points to the river before you.
And what do you expect us to do with the river?
He smiles. I expect you to do nothing with the river. This is where we shall part company. I shall return to my people, and your journey will continue. You may ford the river here. The water is not deep, And he points across the river and he says, "Do you see that path yonder?"
I do. I was just expecting a bridge.
No, you'll not find another bridge for several days. It's the last bridge, as it is called by some. It is further along that path, as it wends through the trees of the troll shaws.
Oh, I don't like that at a one bit. There's got to be another way around. It moves. I don't like that.
Padrion chuckles a bit and he cocks an eyebrow. "You're not afraid of water now, surely, Master Dwarf? It'll barely reach below your knees."
Afraid? No, 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 no. I just don't like. Yeah, I just don't like anything that that isn't solid. Yep, that's what it is.
I don't reckon the ponies will do too well.
Yep, agreed. That they definitely won't do too well. We've got to find ourselves a bridge or some other way across.
I can only carry one.
"There is no bridge. This is where you must pass. It's why I led you here." And he points further up the riverbank, and you can see there's some sort of path. It's rutted. And he says, "Travelers come through here all the time. It is safe, trust me. The water, yes, it probably is cold. It is still early spring. But two hardy, free folks as yourself will be fine."
All right, then. Badu kind of starts to prepare, hiking up his pant legs a little bit and, getting maybe some of the ponies ready to cross the stream.
Perfect.
And Warry just he just stands there staring at it for an awfully long time, almost close to a minute before, and not doing anything.
Badu, you start leading two of these ponies across, and just like Padrion says, the water is cold. It's brisk. You can feel it kind of, biting. It kind of gets into your boots, and you feel it like biting at the ends of your toes. But it's barely to your mid calf, and you're easily able to lead these two ponies across. As he's just getting to the other bank, Padrion steps up to you, Warry, and he says, "A word with you, Master Dwarf, as your companion is bringing those ponies across."
He looks at him briefly with like the eyes that say like "go on," but he takes his face and stares back at the water for a moment.
He says, "I have done you a favor in guiding you safely to the river. I wonder if you might do me one in turn."
Sure, Padrion. I can do that. Still staring at the water.
He looks over his shoulder at where Badu is just getting to the other side, and he reaches into a pocket of his cloak and he pulls forth a folded vellum and sealed envelope. He says, "Several days to the west, there is an inn. It's called the Forsaken Inn. I have been tasked to bringing this letter to a ranger there. But it seems that fortune has shined upon me, and I wonder if you might carry this letter in my place."
He reaches out for the paper.
He hands it to you and he says, The ranger's name is Malor. You cannot miss him. He's an ugly man, even by human standards. And he kind of chuckles at his own joke. But he says, it's very important that you get this letter to him.
He still takes the paper, still kind of staring at the water. Malor, you said.
Malor, yes.
Malor. Ugly man. That's going to kind of be a big challenge there. He kind of smiles at Padrion. Because you're right. All men are ugly.
On this we will agree, Master Dwarf. And as you kind of take this envelope and look, you can see that it's sealed with a green wax, and pressed into it is a symbol. And I shall show you the symbol.
As where he's taking this, he kind of Badu's at this point made it across the stream and has kind of gotten the ponies, back on track, and he looks back and he sees where he's still standing there, and he yells out to him, "Oi, are you coming?
Badu,
Can you handle the pony?"
Badu, you notice that he seems to be in conversation with the elf.
Yeah, doesn't matter.
Perfect.
He's he looks at the letter and then hears Badu shouting at him across the stream, and is kind of conflicted. Looks to Padrion, looks to Badu, looks to Padrion again, looks to Badu. I only got one question. I like sort of knowing what I'm doing. This letter isn't going to get me in any trouble, is it?
Most certainly not. Are you familiar with the Rangers?
Nope, can't say I am.
They are descendants of the kings of Arnor, the Dunedain. They keep the wilds safe, and they keep the shadow at bay, so that the free peoples of Middle-earth might be safe. Those of Bree and Breeland, the Shire, even the mountains of your kin, they help to keep safe.
Nonsense. Us dwarves keep our own mountains safe.
You looks as though Padrion is about to say something, but thinks better of it. And he just inclines his head, conceding to you that the dwarves definitely do keep their mountains safe. Well, Master Dwarf, you should get going. It looks like your companion Badu is growing impatient.
Then he completely forgot about the water this whole last 30 seconds of conversation. Right. He looks around, grabs the one of the ponies, and takes a step into the water. This is his first flowing river, and immediately takes his foot back. That's cold.
As you take that step back, you feel the pony kind of nudge you with its nose, probably missing its companions, its friends, seeing them on the other side of this river. The fort itself is probably about 30 or 40 feet. And you not 100% certain, but you think you heard like a little chuckle from Padrion at your comment.
He moves some of his pant legs up to not get some of the leather wet. And just goes, all right, freaking pony can go across. I guess I can. He looks up to the sky and then back down the road that they've been traveling. Dwan and Krim, I don't want to be seeing you this soon. Better watch me as I cross this river. And he takes a few steps in.
Yeah, it is definitely cold. You do the best you can, but it's just a matter of time before the water kind of sloshes down into your boots, soaking your feet, making them bitter cold. But you make your way across fairly easily. When you're halfway across, you hear Padrion yell to you, two things to remember. Let no one but Malor have that letter. And stay to the road. Do not wander into the woods. He kind of, not quite a yell, but he definitely has to raise his voice over the sound of the river so that you can hear him.
Warry would just nod and continue across. And when he gets close to Badu, he would grumble and just be like, ugh. I told him not to give me anything that would cause me trouble.
And Badu, seeing his Warry kind of, struggling with the water, he gets right to the bank. He goes, "Oh, it's a bit nippy, isn't it?" And he's gonna start to like splash him a little bit, with just like his one hand, scooping up some water. And it's, his hand being as large as it is comparatively to Warry, probably scoops up quite a bit and kind of splashes him at his face and everything. "Oh, come on."
Oh, he just looks pissed and keeps walking, like daggers for eyes. Doesn't do anything about it, but just like stares at the back of your skull as he walks past you.
Badu has a nice chuckle.
And Padrion disappears into the woods behind you, and you guys set on your path, following this rutted path / road that leads now into the wilds, skirted by the Trollshaw's forest, and like a hillocks onto the other side. Your feet kind of just squishing with the water in them. It's several hours into the day before you are able to maybe take a rest and kind of dry them, truly dry them out. So what I need you guys to do is decide like who's going to kind of be your scout and your forager and your guide and whatnot in the journey ahead. So I need you guys to determine what roles those are going to be, who's going to fill those roles, and then give me a couple of roles each.
Well, I think Warry would probably be the one to scout out ahead and just keep an eye on things. Not very good at foraging or getting food.
You would probably also be the navigator, considering Badu has absolutely no clue what's going on or where he's at. So Badu would, in turn, take up the responsibility of collecting, kind of meager hunting, kind of setting up camp a little bit, carry large logs over from the woods that he's chopped down with his great axe to start a nice, a nice sized fire for them. Probably try and hunt down a couple loose stray animals and cook them up for dinner. What would you like us to roll, Lionel? You're muted.
Oh, yeah. So for you, it'd be survival.
Okay.
Perception for you, Warry.
That's a 12 on the survival.
That would be 12 on a perception with passive of 16.
Yeah, so you're going to default to your passive. So staying upon the road, the travel is still slow because you guys are afoot, but you don't have fear of being lost. You manage to avoid, occasionally you hear something that sounds like something large moving through the woods, but you're able to kind of take shelter and go unnoticed by whatever it is. You can only guess at what might cause such a loud noise moving through the distant woods. And so several days pass. You manage to acquire enough food to keep yourself, the two of yourselves, sustained. And after a week, you find the woods starting to thin, the hills starting to flatten a bit, and ahead of you, you can see like kind of these rolling grassed plains. And splitting the plain, you see a ribbon of a river. And, off in the distance, you see spanning this river is a bridge.
Well, this will be a little easier than the last one, huh?
Warry's smiling at the sight of the bridge. Definitely.
You could still take a dip if you'd like.
Yep, we'll see. You splash me with water again, you'll be taking a dip.
And Badu kind of like puts a firm hand on his shoulder like he's about to pick him up or something, like he might throw him off the bridge. Oh, just be careful.
Yeah, so you make your way quickly across this kind of rolling plain. You get to the bridge. You see the river. It's called the Horwell by many in this part of Middle Earth, and the Mythiel is what the elves call it. It's a fork of the same river of Bruin. They meet up together and become the Grey Flood that travels further and makes its way to the sea. And this would be the bridge that Padrion must have spoken about, the one that he called the Last Bridge. It's this grand bridge. At one point, it must be a creation of of when the kings of Arnor ruled, and this was one of the many thoroughfares. It's a rather wide bridge, 12, 14 feet across. You can see that it's cobbled. And though the stonework is worn, you could see that it still carries the greatness that it once had. You cross the bridge. You can see that the waters themselves are kind of swollen a bit from the winter melts from the mountains up, the far mountains. You can see chunks of some ice and other flotsam kind of making its way down the river. It's later in the day. You guys can decide to camp here on either side of this bridge, or you guys can press on forward. If you'd like, you probably could get another hour's worth of travel.
I think Warry would try to egg on Badu to not camp near a body of water.
To which Badu would probably jokingly contest, but honestly leaves all those decisions to Warry mostly because he doesn't really know. He's not really skilled in that sort of versed in that sort of travel. So he would pretty much leave travel decisions to Warry at this point. But he might put up a bit of a fight.
Yeah. As you guys are maybe contemplating this or even discussing it, Badu, you look up to the sky and you see that the clouds are thick and dark. It looks rather ominous to you. And it seems like they're rolling in fairly quickly. By your best guess, you would think that a storm will be upon you within probably hours.
So he might direct Warry's attention to that. It doesn't bother him specifically, but the ponies might get a little anxious during a storm if we don't have any type of shelter or anything for them. They might not travel well. So he would direct Warry, and kind of be like, "Oh, you see that there," and let him make his decision, but still leave it up to him.
Or I would take Badu's decision to heart. He doesn't know much about weather. I mean, he sort of does, but he's got other things to worry about than the current weather under the mountain. So he will look for any kind of shelter at all, even if it's just a thick grove of trees, so they don't get caught up in anything that's going to come. But still wants to get away from the river as best he can.
Okay, yeah. So you guys are going to move away from the river. You're continuing to follow this kind of. You can see the grass the road is still fairly obvious to you. The grass is pressed down. Where it tries to grow back in, passing carts and travelers either press it down with their feet, or there's the ruts of the wagon or cart wheels. So you make your way further into this grassland. Those that might know it's referred to as the Lone Lands. It's the stretch of land between the river and Breland. And it's known to be quite wild. Predators wandering the grassy hills. So you find a spot to make a camp. The clouds continue to thicken. A wind starts to pick up, kind of blowing the grass, kind of giving that that rustled sound. Whipping your cloaks around, and you see the ponies, their nostrils starting to flare a bit, their ears kind of go flatten to their heads. They definitely, your fears come true, as it seems that this weather is, or the imminent weather has begun to settle on the horses or the ponies.
Or he would just continue dragging the ponies on, grumbling to himself a little bit. Quit your whining. It's affecting me too. Come on. It's only a little bit farther.
And is this like an open plain area,
Yeah.
Lionel?
Yeah, it's open grasslands, and it's like kind of rolling hills. So it's not flat. But you're still able to see quite a distance across like hills. And so as these blades of grass are bending over under the wind, the first few fat drops of rain start pattering down on you. In the distance, you hear the rumble of thunder, and you see the flash of lightning across the clouds. What do you guys want to do?
Warry would just would go as long as he can before he really has to look at finding shelter of some kind, and would just try to find shelter. If it's completely flat, he would or flat, he would try to find some type of large hill that they would be able to pack their stuff up against, to at least get out of the wind. And maybe we're just gonna have to put up tents and bedrolls as some kind of shelter for us, because the whole time he's been thinking about it, Padrion hasn't led him astray, and he did say stay on the road, so he doesn't want to wander too far, especially since he himself has never been here and he only has a map.
Right. So give me a survival check. Who's your scout? Was it you, Badu?
It's Warry.
That's me.
Oh, Warry. Okay. So give me the survival check, and if Badu is aiding you, then you will have advantage on that, as you both are kind of looking.
Yeah, he would definitely be looking around for a spot. So
Yes, so total of 19.
Perfect. Yeah. So you spent the rain is slowly starting to pick up, as is the wind. Um, you're pretty much soaked to the bone now. When your eyes come up, gaze across a hill, and you can see an outcropping of rocks just kind of jutting up around between the grasses, and it's not far off of the off of the path. And as you guys kind of head in that direction and draw up close to it, you can see the evidence that maybe it looks like other travelers have used this same locale as a place to camp. You can see like a place where a campfire had once burned. Now it's just soaked and soggy. I don't know if I want to say that. Yeah, soggy. But you can see the charred remains of whatever fire stuffs they had used for their campfire. But you're able to kind of pull up the ponies to it, and it doesn't give you full protection from the rain. I mean, it's still coming down, but it does improve quite a bit upon your present circumstance. Maybe you pull a couple of these tarps that you have packed on your ponies, Warry, and you're able to kind of put them up so it acts as a kind of blind and keeps most of the water from you, though you find that it still kind of runs down along the rocks and onto the ground below you. So you it's just miserable, but not as miserable as if you were in the full brunt of the storm.
Warry's making the best of it, though, as they're packing up and sitting under that. He's just kind of sighs at the moisture and the rain and all of the nasty, miserable weather that's going on, and he pulls out a mirror and a comb and reaches the comb outside to get some water on it and continues to groom his beard, just sighing to himself, staring at Badu, remembering how he splashed him just a little while ago.
Yeah.
And
go for it.
yeah, Badu kind of since it's raining so heavily, is there really a place to start up a fire? Is there enough dry dirt around where it might not get rained on?
It's very unlikely. You could try
Probably not too successfully.
Right. Like I mean,
if it looks hard, like
you carry kindling and stuff on one of the ponies that you would wrap in oiled cloth to keep it dry. But you try and it quickly gets wet, and so you can give me a survival with disadvantage to try to light a fire, and keep it going.
Yeah, he would only give it like one shot. Oh wow, that's an 18. I rolled a 20 and an 18.
Oh, perfect. So
maybe,
against all odds, Badu, maybe it's some skill that you have. You just can't remember where you learned it. You're able to, and I don't know how Warry is reacting to seeing you prepare this fire in this tumult of rain. But you kind of breathe life into these small flames, and it does a little to help, take a little bit of the edge off of as you kind of get this fire going.
And it might be something that he at one point learned, but it just feels like dumb luck. And he's just going, and it's because he's so large, he kind of blocks the wind. So he's just barely able to this humongous man just very gently trying to start a little kindling, and it looks ridiculous. And then all of a sudden it starts up, and he's, oh, I did it. Just looks real proud of himself at Warry.
Yeah, perfect.
Warry was half ready to scold him for even trying in this weather, but shrugs it off and just like, whatever, who cares? It's got fire. Where's the food? And starts pulling out some jerky. Yeah.
So you guys eat a meal. You hobble the ponies so that because it's there's definitely thunder is rolling across the lands around you. You see the bright flashes of lightning, and it is just a long night for you all. You do your best. You kind of roll out your bed rolls. I imagine they've been treated in some fashion with some sort of oils or fats to make them resistant to the water. So you kind of roll those out, and it's just shy of a miserable night, thanks to the fire that Badu has started. When the storm breaks sometime early in the morning, you can hear the dripping of water from the large stones around you. You hear the nicker of one of the ponies as it kind of munches on some of the grass down by its hooves. But you awake and you don't feel refreshed. And just one thing I want to say. So at the beginning of the session, I meant to say this and I forgot. Because you spent time traveling with Padrion, and he was able to locate and for you guys camping areas where you guys could truly get full rest, you both will lose one of your temporary shadow points due to the time you spent with this elf. So please make sure you mark that on your sheets, and we'll pick up now. Why don't you both give me a wisdom save, please?
That's 11 total.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that 9.
So even despite the efforts of Badu, Warry, you are miserable. You are soaked through. You go to light a pipe, and your tobacco had gotten ruined by the storm. It's all damp and wet, and you can't even put a light to your pipe. Badu, you yourself, you feel you don't. Miserable is probably too strong a word, but
Uncomfortable.
yeah, you're uncomfortable. You're wet. The air is kind of cool. You look up at the sky, and you're. I mean, the one pleasant thought you have is that the sky is clear, and it doesn't appear to be that any chance of another storm. And you again set out on your journey. So I'm going to need you guys to give me another couple rolls.
The survival rolls.
Mm-hmm.
That's a 10.
Jesus, suck. That would be my passive 16.
Yeah. Okay. So your eyes are keen, Warry, as you guys continue on your journey. The days pass. It seems like you're just in this sea of waving grass and hill. In the distance, you can see a far like outcropping of mountain, and it doesn't seem like it's getting any closer. But you make the most of this journey. You stay upon the path, remembering what the elf had told you, only venturing off short distances to find a place to camp, find a place to rest on your journey. And the days just pass. It does little to shake for you, Warry, that sense of misery you have. Badu, you pick that up. And maybe, Warry, you can tell us how does Warry kind of just present himself as just miserable? You know, he's got blisters on his feet from his boots getting wet.
The first thing that came to mind is just that child emotion and sound that they make when they don't get their way, and he's just fumbling at night with his pipe's not lighting, his beard is all messed up, and he can't even get a comb through anymore, and he's just like, when will this end?
Badu just almost like a parent who doesn't discipline their child, just kind of lets him rant and rave. And he just stands quietly behind, I know, you said that already.
Well, somebody's got to say something. You don't do any talking. Freaking. Do you even remember anything yet? It's been days.
I remember crossing that bridge and splashing you with water.
Oh, he has it. He takes his dagger out and cuts his sword belt off.
Oh, I remember that damn troll too. Bastard.
Yeah, you better remember that. Dwan and Krim, they gave their lives so that we could be free of that troll. Remember them.
It was an honorable death.
That it was. But can we just find... And he opens up his map too, and he's just like counting the paces almost on the map. Like, come on, how many more steps does he have to take to get to the next village? This
Right.
Forsaken inn that he's talking about.
Right. Looking on your map, you're looking for like any sort of landmark that might give you some sense of how much longer is this going to take. And off in the distance to your right, as you're walking along this path on the 6th day, you can see nestled amongst the hills, it looks like some sort of ruin. Like maybe it was a fortress at one time, but now fallen to the passage of time. You can still see what were once probably raised walls, a turret or two, maybe a main structure, but now it's all decayed and fallen in upon itself. You can see that on your map, Warry, and you would know that you're just maybe a few more days, if the weather holds, as well as your luck, and you will be free of the lone lens. And you'll be passing through the weathered hills and closer to Bree.
Well, he gets some comfort in that, but that's quickly gone in half a second as the map blows out of his hand and he goes chasing off after it for like 10 or 15 feet and picking it up, and it's now damp and he's... Oh, Jesus. Badu, just take this. And he hands them the map and try it off for me or something, would you? And he's just starting to get really aggravated, almost like he's ordering Dwan and Krim around again.
Badu holding two of the ponies in either hand is like, oh, right. And he kind of like does this awkward little move one pony over, and he's holding on both sides with one hand, and he grabs the map and dry it off. And he kind of like rubs it against his shirt a little bit, like, come on. And, no. And he like blows down the middle of it to kind of like get the inside dry. And it's real clumsy and like not very articulate at all, and he looks like an idiot, but he's giving it his best shot, trying to do what Warry's asked him to.
Yeah, so he does his best to dry your map out. Thankfully, the ground itself was not too damp. It being several days since you've experienced any sort of rainfall or any sort of precipitation. But so you finish out the rest of that day and 2 more days on top of that when rain again returns. The only good news, I guess, Warry, that you would find is that in the distance you can clearly see the oh my gosh, the mountains, the weathered hills off in the distance, rising up to the northwest of where you are following this east-west road. And you will be out of the Lone Lands.
What
You
does
figure maybe another day.
looking on the map? What's after these Lone Lands? I think he's now like, oh yes, we're almost done, but what is this coming up, kind of thing.
Yep. So beyond the Lone Lands would be the weathered hills. So you would have just follow the road through a pass. That it's at the southern end of those hills. And as you would draw closer at the end of this day and the start of the next, atop one of these mounts, you would see another ruin. It would be the ruin of Amansul. Weathertop is what others have called it. Once a great outlook and fortress in the kingdom of Arnor, now, like many others, have fallen to the age of time. And but beyond that would be the Midgewater Marsh, and then Bree.
Would Warry, knowing a lot of lore about ruins and items and stuff like that, would he know of anything about Amansul?
Yep. You can give me a check if you'd like.
Sure.
See how much you remember about it.
Wait, there's a new skill for this, isn't there? Lore?
Yep.
19.
Yeah. So you remember quite a bit. Amansul was an outpost for the kingdom of Arnor when the king still ruled, and even after Arnor fell and the other kings, the kings of Fornos, rose up in their place. It was used as an outpost, a stopping point, a kind of a warning for the kingdom. They would light fires to warn the rest of the kingdom if there were invaders. So it's been empty for centuries now. Like I said, just the skeletal remains of what it once was.
Nice. As they're getting up to it and stuff, he would just kind of look at it in awe from a distance. I'm assuming it's far off the road. Both him wanting to go explore it.
Yeah, it's not really far off the road. The road kind of wends around it because it's situated at the southernmost point of the weathered hills, in its function as an outpost and a lookout. So it's probably within a few hundred yards of the road. Would be this is kind of this earthen rampart that kind of winds up this hill to Weathertop itself.
All right, if it's that close to the road, then I think he would turn to Badu and kind of motion over to Amansul, like, we should go check that out. It's a place I've heard a lot about. Should give us a good vantage point at least.
And Badu just, oh yeah, anything other than a hill's fine with me.
Also, yeah, Warry would see if he can head off in that direction. Kind of interested in the actually seeing something that he's read about in a book for the first time.
Yeah. So you travel across to the base of this Amansul, and you spend time making your way to the top, and you can see it's mostly just a footprint. In places, just the walls of Amansul now are just like I said, skeletal memories of what they once were. You can see open windows and doorways, the wood now long rotted away. But as you walk in, rain is kind of pattering down on you. But even as you're standing in the rain, you get this sense of greatness. This sense of peace kind of washes over the two of you. You can feel what was once that great men, free peoples of Middle Earth, once lived and spent their time here.
Warry would definitely revel in in his mind what would be this awe-inspiring fortress, for a better lack of better words, of what it would be or could be. He's definitely taking a look at all of the stonework, and just can really get a good sense of the majesty of what this place was like when it wasn't all ruins. And I think he'd be kind of poking and prodding at all the little areas, just looking around to see what exactly everything was like. Oh, this must have been where they could see, for the southern lands, and this is definitely where they would store all the weapons, and just inspiring the ruins for a little while.
Yeah, and it's not very big. Not as big as some fortresses, and definitely not anything as grand as anything the dwarfs would make in their kingdoms under the earth. But for a structure of man, you're pretty impressed with the quality of the stonework that it has. Even though it's falling into disrepair, that it has weathered so long is a testament of just the quality of the masonry. Give me an investigation check. And Badu, what are you doing while Warry is kind of doing this?
So Badu would find the most central, grandest part of the ruins, kind of probably where they would have their banquets, or where they would spend most of their time, and just kind of taking in everything. And he would stand in the center, and he would probably just kind of breathing in the atmosphere. He would yell out to Warry, "Now this is a place I could get used to."
Perfect. Give me a wisdom save, Badu.
Ooh, that's a 17.
Perfect. Okay. And Warry, what did you get on your investigation? Oh, 20. Never mind. I put it in the chat. 22.
That's right.
Perfect. That's really good. I'm going to do Badu first, and then I'll move to you. So Badu, as you're standing there in the center there, you kind of close your eyes for a second, and you smell the air, and you can almost smell cooked meats, fresh, like smoked fish, cooked pheasant, turnips that have been boiled with potatoes. You hear this hum in your ears of conversation, delight, sensation of music, mingling with the smells of perfumes and spices. And then your eyes snap open, rain pattering across your face. You see Warry kind of kicking around, looking at the stonework, and you're standing in this ruin of Amansul. But it felt so real to you. Make a note on your character sheet that you have advantage on your next save against the shadow, effects of the shadow.
Awesome.
Yeah. Where you spend time, thoughts of your companion forgotten to you, as you're just kind of bringing in the wonder of Amansul. You kind of moving stone, and it seems this place has been gutted. You find evidence of multiple campfires where others must have utilized this place as a stopping point on whatever journey they might be undertaking. And as you're kind of kicking around through the stone, you see this bit of stone and earth and vegetation, kind of scrub vegetation, kind of growing up around these stones, and you see what catches your eyes like the glint of metal.
He would probably exclaim out loud, probably turning over to see Badu lost in his own thoughts at the moment.
Yeah.
Just shrugs and goes over to pick it up and take a look at it. That's odd that, you know, a place like this, somebody would leave something in their campfires behind.
Yeah, it's nowhere near a campfire. It's along the wall, the northernmost wall of this ruin. You move over a stone and pull at the clumps of vegetation and earth, and you see the hilt of some sort of weapon, maybe a dagger. You pull it free, and it is. You can see the pommel is worked with some sort of silver, etched with runes. The hilt itself, whatever leather had wrapped it, is now rotten and decayed with time. The pommel is pressed with a rune itself. The blade, probably once fine, is now shattered, ending only a few inches beyond the hilt. And with that investigation roll, this looks like this was a fine weapon once. And you believe that if reforged, it would be a fine weapon again.
Warry kind of smiles at the sight of this as he picks it up and tilts it around in his hand. And then he feels a couple raindrops hit his head and looks up and is like, oh, shit, it's still raining. But goes back and looks at it, and he'll actually walk it over to Badu as he's staring off into nothingness and probably snapping back around the time that I'm returning, and like, see, something always good when you go investigate places. Take a look at this, and he'll hand it off to Badu.
And Badu kind of looks at it and he's, it doesn't look very good anymore.
Well, it was made long ago. You know what they always say. Nothing's made like they used to. I guarantee if somebody worked this a little bit, it can become good again.
And Badu looks at Warry with this, this face of like, really, dude? And he taps his forehead and he says, no, I don't know what they say. Like, dude, I forget everything. Like, come on.
Well, he just doesn't care. He just smiles. It'll work, trust me. And he'll pocket the broken dagger.
Yeah, Badu just whatever. And he's gonna try and find some cover in this place for the ponies and himself.
Cool. So put that on your sheet, Warry, that you have found an Arnor dagger. And we will see what that reveals in time for you if you can get it reforged. The rain starts to pick up again, getting heavier. Your best judgment would say you're probably better off just spending the night here. You could get full shelter. You can go into one of these outbuildings that is still affords you protection from all sides. Some wind and rain kind of blows in through an open, a vacant doorway. But you're able to start a fire there. It sends warmth. You can even bring the ponies in, which would aid you guys into having more warmth in this small little alcove of an outbuilding. And you wait out the storm and the evening, and you start off the next day. I mean, not start off, but you wake up the next day. And guys, clearly, definitely interrupt me if there's something you want to do as I'm moving you guys forward through the journey. Don't feel compelled to not. But you wake up the next day. The morning air is cool. It has this clean smell of wet earth. And the sun, again, you have that feeling of peace as the sun kind of rises up off in the distance and spreads its warmth across the ruin of Amansul. And that's what you guys would, I guess, feel as you kind of make your way down from this long abandoned outpost, continuing on your journey now along the base of the weathered hills into Breedland. And by your best guess, Warry, I imagine you looked over your map as you guys were taking this respite. And you would feel that you're just days now. Maybe 3 if you guys don't set a really breakneck pace. If you guys just set a real casual pace, you would be there in 3 days.
Nice. Warry would converse with Badu about the distance to Bree 2. Not really even sure. He probably hasn't even told Badu much of what wow, I just forgot his names. Padrion has said.
Padrion,
thank you. Probably hasn't even told him the full thing. He probably told him that he gave him a letter and told him to find the ranger and give it to him. That's probably about it. Probably didn't tell him about the let no one have the letter, stay on the road, anything like that. So he's looking ahead on the map, and I don't think he would know what a marsh is, really. So I think he's kind of like picturing what it would be in the books that he's read and some of the places, but it's like the river for him. He's just not sure what to expect.
He probably would, only because, Warry, you spent some time traveling with Krim and Dewan, leaving the Lonely Mountain. You went north to the Gray Hills and skirted along there around Mirkwood. So you would have probably experienced some marsh in that journey.
Okay.
Or I guess it'd probably be more bog, but it would be very similar. What you probably wouldn't make it. You probably wouldn't know a difference between the two.
So it's probably just language differentiation at this point. What the hell's a marsh?
Yeah. And then you'll see it and you'll be like, oh, it's a bog. Just bigger.
Yeah, so he would just converse with Badu as best he can. And I would say now that the splash of the river is long past him, he would probably forget that. But still, every once in a while, poke fun at him, see if his memory is coming back. That's all he's got to make fun of him about, because he knows nothing else.
Yeah. Badu would, he would definitely be friendly with Warry, and he wouldn't really like poke or prod for any more information about what Padrion had said or the letter or anything. Like, Warry probably brought it up on his own and just like, oh yeah, this and this is happening, and Badu's just like, oh, okay. He just kind of nods his head politely, like, sure, whatever. But you get the feeling that Badu's just kind of along for the ride at this point. He doesn't really look like he has any intentions. He doesn't really look tired from the road. Doesn't look like, he doesn't really know much else at this point. So he's just, this is it. And, this is what happens, and this is how life goes. And for him, he's just happy to have somebody there to, keep him company. But he would be pretty easygoing about whatever it is, however long it takes them to get to Bree. He's just bored of seeing the same, in the plains. He was bored of seeing the same, layout everywhere they go and being the same thing day in and day out. He just wants something exciting to happen. So the Amansul was a nice break for him. So at this point, he's just easygoing. Whatever it is, and Warry's probably a little bit more stressed out than he is.
Perfect. Yeah. So after spending that evening in Weathertop, your next day, you feel that you make really good time. Spirits are much higher than they've been in weeks for the two of you. Probably more for you, Warry. Every once in a while, maybe you reach down and touch that bulk, that bundle, which is that dagger that you, for that little treasure you found at Weathertop, and maybe your mind is drifting to all the possibilities. And so the day passes. So give me one more roll, guys, as you guys are reaching the end of your journey.
With a 4, Badu might be feeling a little bit more exhausted from travel than he thought. He's not on his game.
Yeah.
Good, and 22 for perception this time.
Yeah, Warry is on his game. So as you guys are moving along, it's you, Warry, that hear and see it first. You see shadowed forms moving along the low outcroppings of rock off to your right, and they're moving in quickly on your position. You see
How
they're
far
probably
away?
Yeah, I was just gonna tell you how far. Several hundred feet, maybe 200 feet away, you would guess. And by quickly you look, you count 6 of them, and they're rather large.
And just the shadows of these creatures. Where would it look like they would be coming from?
From the mountains, the hills themselves.
So like coming down the hills to meet us, who's on the road below them.
So think of so these aren't really like huge mountains, but they're definitely more pronounced hills than the hills you were walking through in the lone lands. They're broken. There's a lot of scrub tree and whatnot scattered about the sides of these hills, and they're kind of wending their way through these. So they're not coming down from the hills themselves, but just coming along this one hillside. You guys are kind of skirting out around it as you follow this road.
All right, he would probably pause for a couple of breaths just to see the speed of these shadows, where they're going, to try to just determine if this is I don't say a hostile encounter, but if this is like somebody that's coming at them relatively fast with a purpose, or if this is just something else passing by that he just happened to catch.
Yeah, it looks like purpose, you would say. It seems like they're hunting you. Like they're shadowing your movement along the road, and you just happen to notice them.
And I would quietly whisper to Badu, who probably hasn't even noticed it yet. Badu,
close.
And I just say Badu, and then I just put my finger to my lips and motion for us to keep walking a little bit. And I point out the shadows as we walk for a few more seconds, and then I'm going to try to find some place to hide or get, and also see if I can get a vantage point of what's coming.
And Badu looks, and if he's able to make them out at all, we'll look and see if he can maybe set the ponies off to the side or something. Where they might be out of the way, or at least a good portion of their stuff, so it doesn't get caught up if there's a scrap that's about to happen.
Yeah, you easily notice them when Warry points them out to you, these forms kind of slinking their way. There's no kind of there's no uniformity to their movements. They seem to be, they're moving as a group, but not with any sort of unity, I guess. They're kind of zigzagging in and away from each other, sometimes moving closer or further away, but they're definitely heading in a roundabout way in your direction. You see a couple every once in a while. Would see one of them stop, and you can now give me a stealth roll if you'd like, Warry, as you kind of get like this vantage point. And you can definitely bring the ponies and secure them off to like this little this nestling of trees and rocks.
Only a 12.
So Badu would head to the opposite side of where they were coming and kind of tie off the ponies, and then head back to the trail. And if it looks like that Warry's kind of looking for a place to maybe get the jump on them or see what's going on, he would kind of act as the distraction at that point. And he would have his axe readied, but he would keep walking down the path, almost like acting like he didn't see them or something. Hopefully they miss Warry.
Okay. And did you give me a stealth roll, Warry?
Yes, I did. A total of 12.
12. Oh, that was the yikes 12. It was a good stealth roll. It went right past me.
Well, good. That's a 26 then, right?
Yeah. Call that a crit.
Stealth on the game master.
But regardless, yeah, exactly what Badu said is what Warry was hoping that this big meaty guy would be a distraction as he kind of slinks between the horses and stuff.
Right. So the ponies, what you notice, Badu, as you continue to lead them along this pathway, you notice their ears starting to twitching off in the direction, and their nostrils flaring, and one of them is even pawing at the ground, kind of like starting to pull a little bit at the rope that you are guiding it by. So whatever it is, they've heard or caught the scent of whatever it is, and as you look, you see these large shadowed forms. They're probably almost as big as the ponies themselves. They look like some great wolf.
Warry would probably under his breath say, "Oh shit."
Yeah, and it's hard for you to tell. You do see a couple of them stop, and you see them put their noses to the air as they're sniffing it, as the others are moving forward, heading in the direction of Badu. What do you guys want to do? Badu, you're kind of unaware of this latest change of events.
So if the closer that the guy, so at this point he's able to tell that it's bestial. It's not like people coming at them. I mean, you could tell that much, yeah.
Yeah, you know that they're big.
Okay, but it doesn't look but it doesn't look like men riding horses, does it?
No, it definitely doesn't look like men riding horses. You think men riding horses would probably come down the path at you rather than or they would probably fire arrows at you.
So he's kind of
cover.
So he's kind of gathered that it's it's probably some type of natural predator. So he kind of stops his little, he was walking down the path like he didn't see him. He stops his little act and he's like, all right, let's do it. And so he's gonna get his axe and he's gonna wield it in both hands and be ready for something to come at him and jump at him. He batted out of the air.
Perfect. And you, Warry?
Yeah, he was just kind of trying to still be doing the same. Take the weave in and out of the rocks and or the ponies, trying to just stay out of sight as best he can, using the ponies and Badu as bait. But he's ready with his short sword, just waiting for anything to pounce.
Yeah. So you wait. You see these shadowed forms. They just kind of dip in and out of view, and then they kind of disappear from your view, Warry, as they kind of make their way around a couple of larger rocks and trees. And then you don't see anything. You don't hear anything. time just kind of the seconds are agonizing as they stretch into minutes, to maybe 20 minutes and nothing. You see the horses' tails twitching, the ears kind of twisting about, kind of trying to listen, and their noses flaring. Again, that one pony is just kind of pawing at the earth with its hoof. What do you guys want to do? You don't see them. There's no attack that you seem to be waiting for.
Badu would slowly slink over towards where the ponies were, because as he gets a little bit closer, he can kind of hear them. Maybe one of them snorts a little bit, and he kind of gets that they're anxious, so he thinks maybe something, headed might try and attack them. So he kind of makes his way towards the path until he's near the ponies, and essentially Warry kind of stay grouped up, but he's still just kind of leaning down, his axe ready, and just surveying the area, looking for something to come out.
Warry would look around. Are the hills and cliffs and everything around them, are they climbable pretty easily?
Well, they're not really cliffs. There's definitely kind of rough outcroppings of rock, like boulder type edifices and whatnot. So for you, Warry, you definitely could climb up them, but you don't get a sense that it's something you could bring the ponies up, as your eyes kind of dart around looking for defensible positions.
Okay. Yeah, he would also be looking out for, if it hasn't come in 20 minutes, he's probably like, what the heck is going on? So he would be looking for a vantage point for himself too, just to see if, maybe he can glean where those shadows last were, what's in that direction.
Yeah, you can scramble up a rock if you want. It's not that far, maybe 20 feet away. And give me a perception roll.
Exactly 16.
Perfect. Yeah, you squint your eyes. You listen as you look, and you see nothing. No evidence of any of those forms, any of those great wolves that were moving through towards you.
I think Warren would probably be a little confident of his abilities and just be like, and actually like yell-ish to Badu and just be like, well, I don't know what that is, but I see nothing.
And about how long have they been waiting now?
Probably about 30 minutes, 25, 30 minutes, you would guess.
And about how far out were they when we lost sight of them?
Probably within 100 feet of you.
Badu might start after so long of not seeing anything, might start slinking over towards where he last saw figures, and seeing if maybe there's if there's taller grass, or if there's some woods that they might be hiding in, seeing if he can maybe trigger them to come out rather than wait till they get further down the path and they're not ready for it.
Yeah, perfect. So you start to do that. I imagine you secure the horses in some fashion, maybe hobbling them or something.
Yeah, definitely tied them up to a tree or something.
Yeah. Typically, I think what you would do in a situation like that is you would tie a small strap around their front legs, and that would make them think that they can't move. But if they were feared enough, they could move, and run if they had to. So you do that, and you see him you see Badu start to slink off in the direction that you last saw these large predators. And you creep out there, and you can smell the earth. And it smells fresh. It's It's a very pleasing smell to you, Badu. It kind of like twinges on a bit of memory for you, but it's just as it starts to formulate, you lose it. You feel that this is something you've done something similar to this. That maybe in the past you may have hunted other beasts or whatnot, and as you creep forward, you find nothing. You could give me a survival or an investigation roll.
That's a 14 on investigation.
Yep, perfect. So as you're kind of moving along across these rocks, you know, your axe at the ready. Maybe Warry's kind of worrying as he's watching you. You see no evidence.
Short bow out.
You're just like, all right, distraction, finally. And you see the earth around one of the base of a tree, and a couple of moss-covered stones. You see it's been kind of torn up a bit, and you can clearly see the clear imprints of wolf paws, but you see no evidence of them.
And so as he's kind of skulking along, and he gets that remnants of what maybe, you know, a past experience, his breathing slows, and his his senses kind of, are heightened, and his hair on the back of his neck starts to stand on end, and he's skulking along. And then just as he thinks that maybe he's got it, it's gone just like that. And he realizes, that he doesn't know what he's doing, and he doesn't really, he can't physically bring to mind any experience, any techniques, or any skills that he might have. So at this point, he's going in almost blind and completely on instinct, and his breathing starts to pick up again, and his heart starts racing. And as he's, making his way around, and he sees the evidence of these wolves, but he sees no sign of them. It's just he starts to panic a little bit more, and Warry might even be able to see his large, broad shoulders kind of raising and lowering as he's breathing heavily, and he stands upright and looks around for them with his axe just gripped, as tightly as he can with fear. And he's afraid of the unknown more so than he is of the wolves. And at this point, it's just gnawing at him, eating him alive.
Perfect. Do you have inspiration right now, Badu?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Give me a perception roll, and give yourself an additional inspiration as well.
Well, thank you very much. I think I'm going to use inspiration on this one.
Yeah, I thought you might.
Because that was trash. Okay, awesome. So that is a perception 21 total.
Yeah. You are standing there, your knuckles white on this great axe. You can hear the blood pounding in your ears, and you try to slow your breathing so that you can focus and listen and look. And as you do, your heart starts to slow down a bit, and you look around and you see nothing. Nothing moves. Nothing makes a sound.
And it's extremely frustrating because he can feel it, he can feel that there's he's being hunted. He has that his natural instincts kind of alerting him that there's danger about, and he saw it himself, but now it seems like it's almost disappeared into nothing, and he starts to get angry, and after a while of not noticing anything, he just and he seems now like he would have seen it. He kind of slams his axe onto the ground, like the head of it, and just picks it back up and starts making his way back to the ponies and Warry, just completely unguarded at this point. Now he just turns back and is convinced that there's nothing, and he's pissed, and he's just going to come back. They wasted all this time waiting for something, waiting for, on edge like this for however long now, and it's all for naught. And he's just going to make his way back, kind of mumbling as he drags his axe along the ground back towards Warry.
So as you're coming back, and you probably come into view of Warry, you can see that he's been sitting there for this entire time that you've been like super hyper focused on everything around you, with his bow drawn just in your general direction, just like waiting for something to pounce on you. And then as you walk back and nothing does, he slowly releases the tension on the string, and just like, well, nothing, like I called it, right?
And he swings his axe and puts it on his back, and just,
there's nothing there. Bloody wolves, damn it.
And just begrudgingly, starts to loose the ponies, and kind of sees what state they're in as well, almost hoping that they might still be in a panic, that he can turn around and see a wolf coming at him that he could just absolutely batter now that they've made him wait this long. But if they seem fine, he just continues loosening them, and is gonna gesture to Warry, let's get out of here. He's pissed.
Yeah, the ponies don't look like they're at ease. They're still on edge themselves. But you unhobble them, and it's just shy of midday as you guys continue on your journey. You guys both can't shake that feeling like the threat is still out there. I imagine your eyes constantly drift over to either side of this pathway, looking for the threat that never comes. It's a troubled evening as you make camp. I imagined you make a fire and whatnot, maybe bring the ponies closer to the fire than maybe you have in the past. And so for the next 2 days, you're just on edge. Every once in a while, you catch a glimpse of a large shadowed form kind of following your group. But the attack that you guys are waiting for never comes. And on the third day, as you make your way and the evening sun is starting to set, you see a building set off of the road. And you think to yourselves, it can't be anything but the Forsaken Inn. Exhausted, your nerves frayed, your feet sore and blistered. You make your way up to the Forsaken Inn. I think we'll take a quick break here, guys. Just before I forget, because I will forget this, you are each suffering from the first level of exhaustion from these last 3 days of not sleeping well and feeling like something is chasing you.
Dude, I'm at exhaustion right now. I was hoping you were going to be like, they reach the end and the wolf's there or something. Let me hit it.
Yeah, that's what I'm
No.
saying.
Yeah.
Damn wolves wasting all our damn time.
Yeah, it's one of the great things about Adventures in Middle Earth is the journey is really important, and depending on how you roll, can really influence how things happen. And it just seemed right to me that it wasn't so bad for you guys that you guys are going to get waylaid by this group of wolves, but it was bad enough that they were going to like kind of be following you, kind of like hunting you, maybe waiting for an opportune time, and you just guys never gave it to them. And but it was enough to make you guys really just couldn't sleep, and kind of it's one of those things where like every little snap of a twig, you guys are like, what? So yeah, you guys are pretty tired right now as you kind of making your way up to this inn. But yeah, good. That was the effect I was looking. That was the effect I was looking for, Sean. Thank you.
You got it.
Lionel.
You're such
damn
great description person, man. I was sitting there like,
yeah.
My own shoulders were like heaving and waiting for something to freaking just come out and kill him.
Oh, for real.
I think Kyle was waiting for it, and if this was a D&D game, no lie, man, he would have turned around and said, "Oh, yes, nothing," and then boom, a big wolf would have hit. But no, I decided that they weren't going to attack you. So,
I gave it to. I was like, he turns around completely unguarded.
Look at my backside. There's nothing there. I can't swing my axe that way.
Warry's even shouting at the top of his lungs, "We're here. Nothing's here. Come on."
Yeah.
Damn it, Lionel. I
Or just
I gotta go take a
it would have
breath.
been nice too. Just as you were turning around, Badu, that's when you see like two of these large wolves making their way up the backside of the stone as Warry's watching you and he's unaware of them.
I was thinking that. I was thinking like, hey, I should just tell Lionel I'm looking behind me.
Yeah, I'd have told me I'm looking everywhere. All right. Cool.
When I rolled a 19 and there was nothing there, I was like, "Oh, Lionel, you son of a bitch!" God. All right.
All right. So let's come back in 5.
All right.
All right. Okay, so I think we're all back. Um, yeah, God forbid any poor dogs you guys come across in the next hour.
I'm not gonna have a good time.
So as I was saying, just before we took the break, you guys make your way out of the remnants of the weathered hills and into the more flatter, kind of lightly forested grasslands of what would be Breland. And you come across this building in the warm spring air. It's and maybe at one point it was a grand inn, but now it's it's a corpse of what it once was. If you would not see several carts and ponies hitched outside of this building and hear the sounds of voices coming from within, you most likely would think it was just one more ruined and abandoned building. But you do see light and hear voices coming from inside. So you know this must be the Forsaken Inn.
And first thing that Badu does as they approach, he doesn't notice any of as many horses. He sees a couple sets of ponies, and he walks up to them, and he looks back at Warry and he says, "Okay, I thought it was just your horses that were that small. Are they all this small now?"
Warrior would probably chuckle for the first time in a little while, and just kind of shrug, not really knowing what to expect, and probably not say a thing.
And as he just walks past him, silently, Badu's like, "Oh, it's a serious question now. I have to know. Am I gonna be walking everywhere?"
Yes, Badu, everywhere.
Oh, damn it!
Yeah. So you make your way up to this inn. Again, you hear the voices, and you could smell the clear aromas of smoking pipe tobacco, and you can hear the murmur of conversation from within. And you hitch your ponies alongside the others and make your way inside. You find in this a small common room. You find it crowded with several men and even a few dwarves. They're all sitting at tables, kind of lost in their own conversations. Several of the heads of their heads turn to look at you two as you walk in. A few of the men in here look rather dangerous and have grim looks upon their face. Their eyes kind of hang on you maybe a few seconds longer than make you both comfortable, especially given the affair that you've been through for the last couple of days. You see before them all are tankards or pints of ale or mead or beer. What would you guys like to do?
Real quick, I imagine this fantastic scene when Warry opens the door and just kind of slides into the inn, and everybody turns and looks at him, just this solitary dwarf. And then the door opens all the way, and Badu ducks underneath the door frame into the inn and stands up right behind him. And it's just these two almost similar looking faces, just on completely different structures. And that's how we enter the inn, which might warrant the longing looks. But Badu sees nothing wrong.
Yeah, more likely than not, it is your entrance. More likely than not, Badu, that causes several of these men to maybe cause their gazes to linger. Like I said, the common room itself is rather small. It's probably only 20 by 25 feet. There's no real set bar to speak of. What it is, it's a couple of overturned large casks of ale that a large plank has been rested across. What would you guys like to do?
Under Warry's breath, more to himself than to Badu, he goes, "Oh, this is why they call it the Forsaken Inn. No ale."
Yeah, you do see a spot where you guys could sit. There's 3 chairs at a small table.
Warry would look around first, looking for the ugliest man in the inn.
Your eyes kind of scan the room. Give me a perception roll. Or actually, no, we'll just use your passive perception. It's a 16. You scan the room, and you don't see a man that would fit that description, but one of the dwarves, there's 4 of them in total. One of the dwarves is hideously scarred and rather ugly. He's sitting at a table with 3 other dwarves. One of them looks to be his senior, has a white beard and older, and 2 are definitely youngers. Their beards are still light colored and not as full as these as the older and the deformed dwarf.
I'd look up at Badu behind me as we enter in, and then I'd gesture my head toward the ugly dwarf and go, "Well, he's the ugliest. We can start there." And I'd walk over to his general direction.
And Badu is standing still, like right in front of the door, and he looks over at this dwarf and just kind of gets this grimace on his face. That's not pretty. And as he's doing so, somebody like tries to enter behind him, and they like run into him, and he turns around and is, "Oh, my bad." And it's just a smaller, kind of, scrawnier man. He just, and Badu will follow Warry over towards the dwarf, stand behind him like his big beefy bodyguard.
Yeah, perfect. The man that comes in behind you, you can see that he has this grease-stained apron tied around his waist. He's got scrawny, spindly arms. He's probably middle-aged. You can see he smiles at you at your size, and he makes this little comment, "You're a big one, aren't you?" And you could see, and he gives you this almost toothless smile. He has a few teeth still clinging to his gums. And he gives you a nod and kind of walks past you as you step up behind Warry. Now, Warry, please take it away.
How ugly is he?
This guy, he's not really ugly. He's just
Right,
got poor dental hygiene, we would guess.
Badu's just looking out for all the ugly bastards to point him out to Warry. Like very, very unsocially acceptable as well. Just like, oh, that's an ugly one there. Is that him? Warry's like, no, not ugly enough.
Yeah, you see three.
It's a little game.
You see three armed men. They got like these leather jerkins, weapons, kind of sitting beside where they're seated drinking. You see a man and a woman, a man and a woman sitting at another table. They seem to be having a quiet conversation. They look like potentially they might be a couple of some sort. And then you see an older man and a younger boy, maybe in his mid-teens, sitting at another table. The older man at that table, his eyes aren't like drilling into you two, but you can see that he's just kind of casually watching the two of you. And the young man sitting at the table seems to be chatting him up.
And Badu relentlessly is pointing out everybody he deems ugly. And Warry might catch on to the trend that he's only pointing out men without beards. And every single man without a beard that he finds, he just says, "Oh, that's an ugly bastard." And
yeah, so it's like half the men in the room.
Yeah. So it's every single one of them that without a beard, he's like, "Well, that's an ugly bastard there, and not him." It's like, no.
Yeah.
No. It's like, stop.
I guess maybe at that point, Warry, that's when you probably say, maybe you should rely on your own insight on this one.
Yeah, I'm just as he's doing this, I'm walking toward the dwarf that I saw in the very beginning. Anyway, and I walk up to the dwarf and go, "Are you Malor?" I think that's how we say it, right?
Malor, yeah.
Malor. To the ugly looking dwarf, I say that to him. Just ask him if he's Malor.
You see the older dwarf with the white beard. He sees you coming, and you see him kind of squint a bit, leveling his gaze to yours. And as you ask the deformed dwarf, he says, "He's not going to answer your question. It's a bit daft in the head. But his name's not Malor. It's Vogar. He's my brother."
I'm sorry about your brother. Well, I turn back to Badu and be like, "Well, the ugliest man in here, it's not him. I guess we wait." I probably say that loud enough for the two at the dwarf the table to actually have no questions that I'm talking to them.
And Badu's leaned over somebody's table, like right over their meal, staring at some dude without a beard, and he's like really close to poking him in the face. "Is this him?"
Yeah. You see that you would see that Badu's behavior is starting to really unsettle the rest of the patrons here at the Forsaken Inn, Warry.
Understandably
you see
so.
the three men sitting at the table. Their hands have kind of moved closer to their weapons. And you see one of them looking over his shoulder at the man and the boy sitting at the other table.
I would probably after the ugly one that I deem ugly isn't it, I would probably just walk up and grab Badu by like the belt basically and start dragging him off to another table and just be like, "He's not here. Come on. Let's go over here and sit down and wait or something. Get yourself a drink. You're starting to piss people off."
Yeah.
Oh, my bad.
After you sit down, the man that walked in after Badu with the stained apron comes up to you. He's kind of he smiles again, that near toothless smile at you both, and he says, "Look like you guys have been on the road for quite a while. I expect
would say that.
you want some place to sleep tonight."
Possibly. We were told to meet a man here, so if he doesn't come by tonight, then I guess we will need a place to stay.
Well, we're full up tonight, as you can see. And he kind of looks behind him and across the common room at the rest of the folks within. And he grins at you and he says, "Probably can squeeze you in though, but it'll cost you both double."
You're gonna squeeze him in? Into what? The barn?
Well, it's better than sleeping outside. It's the best I can do.
Badu kind of leans into Warry and says, "I like outside better than I like his face."
You're just focusing too much on people's face now. We just need one person, Badu.
Well, he doesn't even have a beard.
You got a point.
You can just see the whole damn chin. It's disgusting.
It's at that point that the innkeeper realizes you're talking about him, and he just stutters and says, "Well, will we be paying for a room or not? And this common room is for paying customers, not for those that just want to get out from the air." And you can see that he's addressing you, Warry, and not your big lumbering companion.
And Badu's like staring him down now.
Yeah, he's trying not to look at you.
He's like,
this guy's probably 5'5" and probably 110 pounds.
so Badu's sitting on the chair with his legs like kind of almost like he's sitting in a child's chair, like it's still eye level with him, and he's leaning in like all the way. His stank ass breath right in his face.
Well, we know it's for paying customers, and depending on the quality of the ale you have, we will be paying.
Well, then you're in luck then, because I have the best beer east of Brie.
Is that so? You east of Brie to where? Because I guarantee you don't have anywhere near the quality of air that we do in my home city.
And Badu kind of blubbers his beard right in the guy's face. He's like awkwardly close now, and he's like, "What about west of Brie?"
Maybe a little bit west of Brie. And you see him, he kind of uneasily takes a couple side steps away from you. But Shirelings, they're quite good at brewing ales.
And Badu still has a little ways to go before he's fully extended. So he leans a little bit closer, just, now within probably just a slightly awkward distance. And he says, "You're not very specific."
Well then, I'll fetch 2 pints of beer, and you will decide for yourselves. And he excuses himself from the two of you rather hastily, and makes his way behind the makeshift bar.
Badu looks back at Warry like excited, like, "Oh, I think I just got us free beers."
Warry turns around and says, "I think you did too. But did he say Shirelings? Are those the little people I read about?"
"I don't know. You're a little person."
And then he remembers who he's talking to, and is like, "Oh,
Yeah.
He doesn't remember anything past 2 weeks ago, so I guess not. And he waits for the.
Are you shouting?
Yeah, and in short order, he brings back two frothing pints of beer, and he sets one down in front of each of you, and he says, "'Twill be 3 copper for the both of them."
And Badu kind of puts back on his scowl as soon as he sees the guy come back over, and he stares him down, and he grabs the mug, and he lifts it very slowly, and he says, "I don't remember ordering a pint." And then he starts to drink it while keep maintaining eye contact.
Yeah, it's one of those things where he looks at you, but he quickly turns his eyes away. Looks at you and quickly turns his eyes away.
Yeah,
you get a sense that he's trying not to look like he's afraid of you, but clearly he is. But the beer, it does taste rather good. It's warm, but it definitely hits the spot. You can almost feel some of the weariness from your muscles and bones just kind of seep away, Badu, as you take that haul on this pint.
And Badu, after finishing his drink, kind of looks down at it, nods his head a little bit in agreement, and then he puts down 2 copper pieces and he slides them to him. He's like, "Thank you." Yeah. Just shortchanging him just a little bit, just to keep his dominance.
You're surprised at how quickly his hand darts out, scoops it from the table into his other hand, and he drops it into a pocket on his apron. So, will you be staying the night then?
It all depends. Do you know
2 silvers each?
2 silvers?
Yeah, you know that is a very steep price.
These rooms, and he takes his first swig of the ale that is placed down, gives like a half-hearted, like crooked smile, and goes, all right. But 2 silvers, we better be getting the king's suite if that's the case.
If only we offered that here. Nope, it'll be a communal room.
So we sleep in the common room then?
He nods his head. He says that's where he kind of thumbs over his shoulder to the others, and he says, "So everybody will be sleeping. This isn't a high and fancy place."
We'll wait until tonight hits. Unless you happen to know where a Malor is.
His mouth kind of twists a bit. Terry Mack? What would the likes of you be wanting from that ranger?
Badu's just like, "Oh, that's not. No, he said Malor. It's not the same name. You're dumb."
He frowns at you and he says, "It's one and the same." And you can see that he was probably going to say lad to you, but then he sees how big you are. It's what we Brelanders call the ranger. Call him Terry Mack.
And why is he called Terry Mack and Malor?
Malor is his name. Terry Mack's what we call him. He kind of shrugs as if it's just, I don't know. It's what everybody calls him. And then he kind of sidesteps a little bit further from you, Badu, and he says, "Yeah, he was here earlier. Came in about midday. Face on him is so sour it's a spoiled beer."
Why do you think we were looking for the most ugly person in the room?
He is that.
Well, does he come in often?
I'm sorry, I missed what you said.
I said, does he come in often?
Too often for my liking. But yes. Sit down, enjoy those beers. I'm sure he'll be along in no time.
Does he have a beard?
Most of the rangers do. He keeps his trimmed, though.
Trimmed. And Badu's just kind of like scowls and looks down at his ale, just at the thought of a trimmed beard, like, ugh, just makes him shut.
I think Warry's like almost had enough of the beard comments by now. He's just like so glad that he has his own beard, but at the same time he's just like wonders about the his people and what the women must look like if they think everybody without a beard is ugly.
You get the feeling that Badu has an extreme prejudice.
Right.
You just really experienced it up till now, being, you know.
What's really great too is that he has no memory beyond like what 3-4 weeks ago.
Yeah, it's just ingrained in his.
It's an ingrained prejudice. He doesn't even know why he has it.
It's like a baby chick or like a duckling when they're first born, and you know they imprint. So the first thing that he saw was 3 beards and his own. So like everything without a beard is just abnormal to him. First thing he saw was these dwarves with their beards, and you know he had his own, and so everyone without a beard is just disgusting.
So the bartender, whose name Warry you would find out was Jack, he gives you a quick nod and let me know about the rooms, or I shouldn't say rooms, room, and he kind of walks off and kind of disappears through a back door. And as he does so, you notice one of the younger dwarfs get up from the table and walk over to the table with the man and the woman. Some quiet pleasantries are exchanged, and he sits down, and you see him present this flask, which he then proceeds to pour into the man's cup and then into his own. They tap them together, smile, say some sort of salutation, and start to drink. The woman kind of frowns a bit, but doesn't say anything.
Warry would probably keep an eye on the male and female for a little while just to see what's going on, and not necessarily what that's about, but what their whole situation is about, both of them. And probably even points it out to Badu just so he can make another comment about the guy or girl's beard.
Badu's busy just sizing up everybody in the bar, just making sure that everybody knows that he's big and bad. He's just staring, like every dude with a weapon or a sword by him, he just kind of like stares at him and gives him that same scowl that he gave the bartender. And then after they're like, all right, this guy's weird, and they look away, he just kind of nods to himself in agreement, like, yes, that's right. I've done it. That's what he spends most of his time doing.
Perfect. Yeah. So you're just finishing that first pint of beer when the table you hear the scraping of wood on wood as the man and boy rise from their table, and the older man, says in a loud, kind of commanding voice, he says, "I want to make for Bree before the week's out. I've a crick in my neck from sleeping rough, and I ain't gonna get much rest from a festering pit like this. To bed, you sluggards. We're heading off at the break of dawn." And as he says so, you hear some grumbling from the 3 men at the table. They finish their drinks, and you see them push from the table, drop a few coppers, and start making their way to the back room. The man kind of levels this look at the few of the other tables. The dwarves just seem to kind of keep talking amongst themselves, ignoring this man. The man and the woman just kind of look and kind of nod to the man. And a patron that you did not notice earlier until now, off in the corner, sitting by himself, you see him kind of smile and nod approvingly at this man's announcement. This man kind of stands out now because he's kind of bundled in all these furs. He looks ancient. His got little wisps of hair kind of crowning his head. And he rises up, and you see across all of his fingers, several gold rings, a few of them even adorning a gem. And you see him start making his way through a side door to the sleeping rooms.
And you said the other men kind of complained and vacated the inn completely?
Yeah, the only ones left in the inn, in this common room, are the man and the woman and the dwarves. The young boy that was with the man that kind of yelled out, he walks over to the table with the man and the woman. He has a few words with them that you can't quite make out unless you want to give me a perception roll.
Sure, why not?
Yep.
Natural 20.
Oh, shit. You tell me what they know. Just kidding.
So they're talking about
Dense reality.
The young man walks up to the table, and he's standing between the man and the woman. And you can see that he's directing his comment to the woman. He says, bear alas. Will you be going to bed soon? I figured if we could get up early, we could go out and look for some herbs. I think when we came in earlier today, I think I saw a cluster of peppermint. She smiles up at him and says, Eowyn, yes, if I'm not tired, Dad, I would love to do that. And the young boy kind of roses at the cheeks, smiles, and he turns to the man, kind of gives him a nod, and he walks to the back. The older man that was with him says, don't be up too late. We have an early morning. And he kind of nods to them as well. The two men kind of exchange glances. And he kind of says loud enough for the dwarves to hear at the other table. He says, and that goes for you too. Don't be staying up and drinking too much. And he doesn't wait for a response as he kind of turns and heads to the back.
Do I get
the door.
An uneasy feeling from that conversation, like the wording was forced or anything like that?
No, it seemed pretty natural. The man that was speaking is pretty big. You would say that he's probably almost as big as Badu, if not in width, in height almost. He looked older. His skin pretty weathered. So he's probably someone that spent quite a bit of time traveling underneath the sun. And you see that hanging from his shoulders is a well-worn blue cloak.
All right, something that's still, I don't think Warry is quite convinced. So I guess he would just kind of I won't say follow them, but keep an eye on them for most of the night just to see what happens. Staying up just as late as they will.
Okay. Yeah. So it's not long after the man has retired that the woman rises from the table. She smiles at the man. She smiles at the dwarf, making her oh my God, goodbyes, I guess, good nights, as she retires to the back of the inn, and leaving just the dwarves and the man. You've noticed that this whole time, the young dwarf and the young man have been drinking pretty heavily, and you would guess by the looks of it, both are fairly well on their way to being highly intoxicated. The three other dwarves, not so much. The disfigured one is rarely sipping from his pint, as is the older one. But you do notice some sort of family resemblance amongst the dwarves. You would definitely notice that, Warry, given your own heritage.
All right. I just maybe it's just his paranoia, his the situation of the travel, the fact that he's still miserable and just now getting inside. I think he's going to keep an eye on the woman. And so if she's going into the sleeping room, he would do the same. And if needed, silently pay Jack as well without Badu knowing.
So as she kind of gets up to kind of go to retire, you see that Jack's kind of seated at this chair near the fire. He's got a short sword. It's just kind of resting across his legs. And as you walk up to him, he kind of puts his feet down, and he doesn't stand up though. But he does smile again, that near toothless grin as you drop the silver into his hands. He kind of just thumbs towards that back door. He goes, "Make yourself at home."
Certainly. Just one question. Who's the gentleman and the lady?
He kind of looks. He goes, "Oh, they're with the caravan. Came in earlier this morning." Oh, not this morning. Earlier this afternoon. My bad. The woman is bare lass, and the man, her linen.
What do they want with the dwarves? They guards or something?
He kind of squints at you, kind of shrugs his shoulders. He goes, "I don't know. They're all traveling together, part of the caravan. They're brothers, I think," he says about the dwarves. At least the two older ones. It's so hard to And then he catches himself.
And so hard to tell us apart.
He's going to say, "They have a family resemblance. I think the older one's name is Vic. Or Vicard, something like that."
All right. Well, at least thank you for the roof over our head. It has been a long journey. See to it that Badu is well watered down.
He says, as long as he's paying, he'll drink.
I can cover if needed. And he slips some one more silver to cover a few more drinks, I'm sure.
You could see that he was just about to say, "I want to see the coin." But as you, before he can even say it, you slip the coin, and he just gives a nod. He says, "The lad'll drink."
Thank you, Jack. As he tries to make up from some of the discretions earlier and heads into the sleeping room to check it out.
All right, cool. So you head to the back room, but dude, what are you doing? Why Warry is doing that?
Now that most everyone's left, Badu's just kind of solemnly drinking. Not a lot to keep his attention, but it's a much needed rest that he's needed after traveling on the road for so long. Especially that last few days was just awful for him. He's he hasn't slept. He seemingly hasn't slept properly since Warry, Dwan, and Krim found him, and he feels like maybe the first time in a while he might actually sleep throughout the night. And to be honest, he's kind of a little afraid because of what he's been, experiencing in sleep. His dreams have been tormenting him, and his head hurts when he lays down, and it's been unpleasant to say the least. And so he's a little wary to go to bed, just for fear that it's going to be a long night. So he tries to kind of, you know, make it a little easier by downing a few more ales.
Yeah.
And it's just him and Jack for a little while, and he just kind of he never breaks that scowl. He doesn't really get super drunk, but it's just enough after a while, maybe another 30 minutes or so, of just kind of putting him back a little faster now that everyone's gone. You know, he's just woozy enough to go and lay down, and
Yeah.
he'll do that.
So Jack would bring you over a couple of pints of beer, and just kind of motion his head towards the door that Warry had disappeared through. You see that 3 of the dwarves shortly after that retire themselves, just leaving you, Badu, Jack, and the man and the other young dwarf in this common room. The fire is starting to dwindle in the grate, and you notice that no one else has come to the Forsaken Inn. The ranger has not returned. And I'll leave you with that as we kind of shift to Warry. You pass through the door, and it leads down this short hallway, a couple of doors on either side, and then it opens up into a large communal sleeping room. You see that there's pallets laid out on either side. You see that several of them are already full. Several of those you can hear the sounds of sleep coming from several of them. What would you like to do, Warry?
Warry would survey the room just to kind of get a heads up of like where everybody is, who's sleeping where, and take a pallet or an area and move it a little bit if he has to. He doesn't want to be annoying, just so that he can get the best vantage point of at least watching and seeing the lady if she's in here, and probably trying to listen in on conversations if there are any, as people fall to sleep. Just to, you know, heard about a caravan. Did he see anything caravan-ish when he was coming inside?
Yeah, you saw the carts and the ponies.
About how big of a caravan, or like how many ponies and carts?
That's a good question. You saw at least 10 ponies and 2 good-sized carts.
Okay. He's just unfamiliar with the area, so probably is going to make sure that he's like the last one to go to sleep if he ever actually does fall asleep. Just keep an eye out, you know, bring out his beard comb and mirror, and finally, you know, try to get all the tangles and stuff out of his beard.
Yeah.
Now that he's inside.
Yeah, as you come into the room and you start to move your pallet, you look over and you can see the young woman. She has a bone comb, and you can see her kind of combing out her hair. She's seated on her pallet. She kind of inclines her head towards you and gives you a warm smile, and then continues to comb out her hair.
I say give her one of those like cheers salutes like you would do with wine or an ale, but with my comb as she's combing her hair.
You can see that she kind of chuckles a little bit, probably recognizing the humor in it. She combing her hair, you combing your beard, and she says, "Funny, huh? The importance of me maintaining my hair is much like yours maintaining your beard, good dwarf."
Warry smiles, and it is kind of funny, isn't it? Although it seems like it's been a good while since I've done more, and so pardon the appearance.
Have you traveled far, good dwarf?
Very far.
I could not help but notice that you and your friend had the look of someone that had been weary on the road. Is it some urgency that drives you?
Not really. Just getting from one place to another without trouble. He kind of says that in such a way as to maybe to see if she would inquire about it more, but otherwise doesn't say anything else.
She stops for a second as she's combing her hair. Trouble? What do you mean by trouble, good dwarf?
Oh, you know, elves and wolves and trolls and, you know, as he kind of smiles a little bit.
Yeah. She says, we have been fortunate in our journey. We have not had any issue with brigands or trolls and orcs. I like to think that it is all to the thanks of Ederic. He's a very skilled guide. And her eyes just kind of drift over to the older, taller man, asleep on his pallet.
Ederic, huh?
She nods her head.
Where is your caravan off to, and where have you been from?
We travel to Bree. We come for trade. I travel with my my master, my teacher. I am an herbalist by trade. And I hope to learn more of the skill by traveling with him. He makes tinctures and tonics to aid the infirmed.
He kind of like tilts his head, like curiously. Infirmed? Not familiar with that.
The sick.
Oh, you're sick?
No, those that are inflicted with disease and illness or have hurts.
Huh. And she can probably tell by now that his charm and interaction with other people starts to quickly fade, as he always has no idea really how to keep conversations going with other people that he doesn't know about.
Yeah.
So you're not sick, but you help the others sick. God, herbalist.
Yeah, she kind of pats this pouch that's kind of situated up next to her pallet. She reaches down, she undoes a clasp and kind of folds it open, and she kind of pulls out a couple of small bottles. She says, "See?" She goes, "This one." She shakes it, and it's this clear liquid, but you see that there's something floating inside it. She says, "This helps someone when they are troubled with bad dreams. And this here is if you cannot settle your stomach." And it's more of like a pinkish kind of a liquid.
Pepto-Bismol color.
Yeah, exactly. I'm glad that you didn't miss that.
He would smile at and look at the liquids and just be like, "Well, that's a noble trade." Just trying to think of something to say.
She seems to be pleased with that. She smiles. She says, "And what of yourself? Where is it you and your... forgive me. Have I introduced her yet? Did she introduce herself to you? I don't think she did.
Yeah. Well, no, she didn't know.
Yeah. Maybe you know her name, but she doesn't know that you know her name.
Yeah.
She goes, "Oh, forgive me. I'm tired myself. We are very eager to get to Bree. I am Barilas."
Nice to meet you, Barilas.
And who are you?
I can be called Warry.
It's a pleasure to meet you, Warry.
Same pleasure as mine.
And as she's saying that, she's finishing her hair and she's returning the comb to her to a pouch. She goes, "Oh, Oh, I'm so tired. Where is it you said you were going?
Well, I myself am. I'm heading to the Blue Mountains, but I have to stop off here for today.
Oh, I have heard Vic talk about that often, the Blue Mountains. I believe that that's where he and his kin are from. And you see, she kind of like um, reflectively kind of tilts her head. She says, "Yes, yeah, I am almost positive that is where he said they were from."
What are they doing all the way out here?
Oh, give me a persuasion roll to see if she'll tell you anymore about that.
Let's see. That's like what, a -20, right?
It's not. That's not a negative.
Oh, natural 20 minus a
No
1.
way.
Yeah, yeah.
Awesome. She goes.
Damn.
She
Swab.
kind of hesitate, like, should I really tell her that? Tell him that? And then she goes.
Here, take a picture.
She goes. She kind of whispers this. She goes, "Well, you did not hear this from me, but I do believe that he works for Mirabar, the old man who he's a merchant. Much of the goods that are carried in this caravan are his to be sold. He's a tinkerer, I think. The dwarf, Vic. I think he's in his service."
Or he just kind of nods as she's telling us. Would he know what Mirabar would be?
Mirabar would probably be the old man you saw with the furs. And because you got the nat 20, she would just add on to that. She would say, "It's a sad thing, really. His brother, Vic's brother." Because she kind of maybe sees you kind of say, "What do you mean? Whose brother? Vogar? The poor creature. He was struck by an orc, left him dumb. I've looked him over," and she shakes her head sadly. "There's nothing I can do. The hurt is too deep. No tincture, no herbal remedy will cure his malady, unfortunately."
So he kind of whispers as well that she's, kind of mimicking her her social standards, and is like, what's wrong with him?
"Did you not see the scar across his face?"
He just looks ugly.
"No. It is said that he was set upon by orcs, and a mighty orc cleaved clean through his helmet and into his brain. Some would say that it might have been better if he was killed. It would seem that his brother Vic feels that he must care for him, because I doubt he could care for himself."
Oh, that is sad to hear.
And she nods her head in agreement. Oh, she yawns and she says, "Well, the hour is late, good dwarf. I shall turn in because it seems that Ederic would have us on the road early in the morning. It was a pleasure to meet you."
It is a pleasure to meet you as well, Bearlass. Have a good night.
And she would kind of lay out onto the pallet, and after several minutes, you can hear her breathing kind of just get very relaxed as she falls to sleep. Badu, sitting in the common room, you see that the young dwarf and Herlinan are quite drunk at this time. Their speech is rather slurred as they're exchanging tales back and forth. Nothing of real note. You see Jack scowling from his seat over by the grate. the short sword still resting across his lap. When he sees your eyes kind of drift over to him, he kind of reaches over and just pokes at the embers of the fire with his short sword, to try to make it look like he meant to look away from you. And the hour is much late, and still there is no sign of the ranger.
At this point, Badu's probably coming down to the end of what he's decided is his last pint for the night, from what Jack had supplied him previously. He's gets down about a quarter left, and he sees kind of just the sorry state of the inn now, considering how late it is. He's, it's about that time. He's gonna, down the rest of it. Seeing these other two who are basically just drinking the night away, he sees no point in partaking. They're not adding anything of value as far as information. Not that he would probably really care that much. And then he's gonna head towards the sleeping room. And just before he ducks under the door, he looks back at Jack, and they make brief eye contact. And he gives him a scowl. And he nods his head, no. And he just leans under the door and into the sleeping room. Jack has no idea why that just happened, but Badu has disapproved of something he did.
Yeah, and you're not 100% certain, but you think as you kind of pass through the portal and down this small hallway, you think you almost hear a snort, but you're not quite sure. You retire to the back, and you find the common room. You see people laid out on pallets. You're able to find one near Warry. I don't know if you're. This would have been probably an hour or so after you finished your conversation with Barilus.
Would anybody else be up at this point?
No, everyone else in this room is sleeping.
I'd probably say that Warry would be like in that just falling to sleep state. Like he'd be like nodding off every once in a while, trying to stay up as long as he could. He would have like packed some of his things that he took into the inn near him, especially the letter, and like put it in a place that would be very hard for somebody to get to. Just sort of untrustworthy. And maybe noticed Badu coming into the room, and like getting really close to him before like being able to open his eyes and be like, "There's a pallet here for you," and then kind of like passing out again.
Perfect.
And Badu just kind of grunts, and he's going to scoot the pallet kind of near a wall or a pillar or something that he can kind of half sit up against. The pallet's not really like big enough to hold all of him, so he kind of uses it more as like a chair, and he just kind of dozes off with his back against a wall or a pillar somewhere, and almost like he was sleeping on the road again, and dozes off fairly quickly, but a very fitful rest as per usual.
Yeah. All right. Good. And I think that's where we'll end chapter 2 for you two as you fall asleep this night, not having really any answers, or probably more questions than answers. Like, where is this ranger? Maybe how long do we have to stay at this inn in order to find him? And maybe you're reminded that too, Warry, just as you were going to bed, you would feel like maybe that bulk of the letter that is in a pocket of maybe your a cloak or an under tunic or something. But we will end it there, and we will pick it up in the next installment of what is Warry and Badu's journey across Middle Earth.
Woo!
Good job, guys.
Thank you, sir.
Excellent. And with that, we are going to end the stream. If you watched, thank you, Carol, for watching. And I believe that LA Jackson was here watching a little bit. So thank you guys. And anyone else that happens to give this a listen, I say watch, but we're not using cameras, but that was a group decision. So this is really a stream where, you can really kick back and do something else and just give it a good listen, because I got some awesome players here. And I hope that you enjoyed this session, and I hope you tune in for future ones. Thanks, guys.